Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of Conversing on Africa's Peace, a podcast focused on African Union's Peace and Security Council and key related issues, produced as a collaboration between our Australian Embassy in Addis Ababa and Amani Africa Research and Media Services. My name is Sion, Senior Researcher at Amani Africa. Today I'm joined by my colleagues Tefsehet Hailu and Hani Wahila. Hello both and welcome to this episode of our podcast.
Hello.
Before we start today, as we normally do, I think it would be great if we try to look back to the activities of the council over the previous months of November, then we come to the months of December, yeah. So, as we all recall, Djibouti was the chair of the PSC during November. So both of you, if you could just briefly walk us through some of, those standout sessions and also activities of the PSC which took place during November, I think that would be great. As we all know, November is essentially the month for commemoration of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. It's also a month where we have the PCRD week. The PSC during this year's November also had its annual retreat. So, it was quite a busy month, we all know. But what do you think really our listeners should be aware of? What should we highlight for our listeners in terms of key outcomes from the months of November? Hani.
Yeah, thank you, Sion. As you've already mentioned, I think November session mainly focused on thematical topics. The first session of the PSC was the sixth informal annual joint consultative meeting with the UN Peacebuilding Commission. During that session, the PSC and the UN PBC considered the new agenda for peace that was released this July, and its emphasis on national strategies, national prevention strategies at least. And during the session, the PSC and the PBC discussed supporting national and regional prevention strategies by creating platforms that will allow for the sharing of these national strategies to facilitate peer-to-peer learning, and further these national strategies to be positioned as an agenda item at the Summit of the Futures in 2024. And in addition to the prevention strategy, they also discussed resource mobilization and areas of collaboration. And the most important area of collaboration that they've discussed is they will be conducting a joint mission in Mozambique this upcoming year with both the PSC and the UN Peacebuilding Commission. And with regards to the women, peace and security, as you've indicated, the PSC dedicated a session commemorating the 23rd anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. The session mainly focused on women's participation in peace processes and countries where they should be implemented, including the DRC and Sudan. And other discussions were also around how to ensure the facilitation of financial support for women in peace processes. So I think moving forward, the outcome document had requested for the Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security to conduct a comprehensive review of the involvement of women in peace processes. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think for the remaining sessions, Tifsit can come in.
Hani, thank you. In addition to what Hani has mentioned, the thematic session she mentioned, another significant session of the PSC that took place in November is the session that focused on climate change. The session holds great importance as it preceded COP28, which is currently being held in the United Arab Emirates. During the session, two important documents were submitted to the PSC for consideration. The first document is African Continental Climate Security Risk Assessment on Climate Change, Peace and Security Nexus. The assessment explores the interconnectedness between climate, peace and security throughout the African continent. It also served as the foundation for the development of the chairperson's report on the climate change, peace and security nexus in Africa. And this document was the second document that was submitted to the PSC, and it was considered by the session. Well, the chairperson's report included key findings and recommendations based on the assessment and analysis that was conducted. After consideration, the PSC requested the AU Commission to present the preliminary findings of this study during COP28, which makes the outcome eagerly anticipated by all of us who are following up on the issue. This is from my side.
No, yeah, that's interesting. I think we're all eagerly awaiting to see what COP28's conclusion will bring forth. So yeah, how about other key findings? I believe there were also country-specific sessions that took place during this month. Yeah. If either one of you can also briefly go through that.
Yeah, particularly for country-specific sessions, there was two, one on Sudan and one on South Sudan. For the biggest, I think, outcome from the Sudan's ministerial level session that the PSC had was the decision for the PSC to establish a high-level ad hoc panel. Yes. And this panel is expected to engage with various stakeholders, including women and youth, to ensure like an inclusive process for the civilian-led political transition the AU has been championing. And I think it comes at a crucial time to have this high-level ad hoc panel, as it allows the AU to kind of focus its full-time capacity on finding a sustainable solution for this situation in the conflict in Sudan. Yeah, I think for South Sudan, Tifsit can take us through that one.
On South Sudan, the session assessed the progress and challenges in the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. The session considered the different situations or the different progresses that have been made in the past 1 year, between 6 months to 1 year. And after that, the session welcomed the positive developments such as the appointment of the leadership of the National Elections Commission, the National Constitutional Review Commission, and the Political Parties Council. The session also deliberated on the challenges emanating from lack of political will, mistrust, funding, and regional dynamics. In addition to the country-specific sessions that we discussed, also the thematic sessions, there were two sessions. Since we're talking about the sessions of the PSC, we would like to inform our listeners that the PSC also discussed sessions on youth, peace and security, and on post-conflict reconstruction and development. And the post-conflict reconstruction and development session was convened during the PCRD Awareness Week. But we're still expecting for the outcome document to be released. So, yeah.
We look forward to the outcome document.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. So thank you both for walking us through this very important sessions that took place during the course of November. So when we come to the months of December, we already know that Gambia has taken over the role of chairing the PSC for this month. We also know at this stage that there are 3 substantive sessions. 2 of them have already taken place. In addition to that, there's also going to be the 3rd PSC and APRM joint retreats, which has been happening since 2021. So that's one thing to look out for. There's also the 10th high-level seminar on peace and security. That's the Oran process, which will be taking place at ministerial level this year. And then interesting, I believe, also is, the PSC's informal consultation, which will be taking place for the 2nd time during this year to sort of engage parties which are undergoing political transition. I think these are some of the interesting sessions that will be taking place during this month. So So why don't you both just walk us through some of these and what the expected outcomes could possibly be for these sessions? So yeah, maybe Tifsit, if you can just start up and walk us through some of the sessions taking place this month.
Yeah, Zion, thank you. That's right. Gambia is the chair for the month of December. And to give you an overview of what the month holds, this month the PSC will be covering a total of 3 substantive sessions. And there will also be a joint consultation between the APRM and the PSC. From the 3 substantive sessions, 2 are thematic sessions, and there will be 1 country-specific session. However, in the country-specific session, the PSC will address 3 countries in political transitions. Those countries are Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Well, one of the key thematic sessions to highlight for the month is the session on mercenaries and private military and defense companies. The session already took place on the 1st of December. So far, the issue of mercenaries and private military and defense companies has not been a standalone agenda item in the PSC. However, it has been discussed in the past within different thematic issues and country-specific situations. So this session marks the very first time the AU Peace and Security Council will dedicate a session on this matter. Just to talk about what happened during the session, as we all know, there is an increase in the role of Wagner and other private military and defense companies operating in West, Central, and Southern Africa in conflict and fragile areas. And the African Union more broadly has been more cognizant of the increasing role of mercenaries and private military and defense companies on the continent. So during the session, the Peace and Security Council discussed the spread of mercenaries and private military companies in different parts of the continent, highlighting the conflicts affected and fragile areas of the continent. The PSC was also briefed on the revision of the AU Convention on Mercenaries in Africa. This revision was requested by the 12th Specialized Technical Committee on Defense, Safety and Security, but later it was endorsed by the Assembly in 2019. And it's an ongoing process, the revision of the convention. Since 2009, different activities have been undertaken by the Political Affairs and Peace and Security Department of the AU, amongst which the development of a study with regards to the situation of private military and defense companies in the continent, and also developing a draft revised convention on mercenaries in Africa. And that revised draft was submitted to different relevant AU organs who are concerned with the matter. So I believe there were 2 consultations that took place in the process of revising this convention. So it's after that process that it's being presented to the PSC, and the PSC has considered the document. But the outcome document of the session is not still. It's not released.
Yeah. Thanks, Tifsit, for that very detailed explanation. Given that this is also, the first time that the PSC has added this topic as as an agenda to its to consider. But what do you think we should really expect? Of course, the outcome document is still pending. But like just to sort of discuss amongst ourselves, what do you think we should expect from the outcome of the PSC session?
In terms of the revised convention, what I anticipate that the PSC is going to include in the outcome document is that the Council will recall the 2019 decision of the STC on defense and security, and it will commend what the steps that have been taken so far, and yeah, if the revision or the revised convention is accepted and endorsed by the PSC, eventually it will be submitted to the STC. So the PSC may request the AU Commission to submit the draft revision to the STC.
Okay, that's interesting. I think something to look out for. Honey, anything you could add?
I think it's really important and timely for the revision of the convention because 1970, long time, 77 I think, long time. So beyond the Mercenaries, I think I can just walk you through the other session that was of importance for the PSC this month. And they just recently convened a session on the promotion and protection of the rights and welfare of children in situation of conflict, and they held it in Banjul this past week. We're looking forward for the outcome document, but I think the session mainly focused on assessing the implementation of AU child protection policies and its efficacy in creating child protection mechanisms. And I think this session has been happening on a yearly basis, so it has kind of been institutionalized by the PSC regularly. And I think the outcome of the session would most likely look at member states' endorsement and adoption and implementation of the African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child, and ensuring that member states actually embed it into their national strategy plans and action plans as well. And if anything else, I think the other expected outcome might be the monitoring and reporting on state of protection of children in armed conflict. And ideally, it would be nice to see if Sudan was also covered in that.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, in that session. But yeah.
Yeah, true. That's definitely a good point, Hani. Thank you. So at this stage, I think there's one more session and other activities we're expecting for this month. Tafsir, what do you think in this regard? Or Hani, one of you, if you could just take over,
So I think from the upcoming sessions that the PSC will be holding, the ones that you mentioned were the joint retreat between the APRM and the PSC, which happens on a yearly basis. And from previous session, we can expect that it will focus on strengthening the nexus between governance, peace, and security on the continent, and also looking at enhancing cooperations between the AU's organs, REX, PSC, and APRM as well. And then beyond that, I think I know the other session is going to be on the A3. PSC is going to convene with the A3. And this year, the theme will be celebrating 10 years of progress and cooperation, a decade of transformation and innovation, reaching new heights together. So I think with that in mind, and with the previous month's session with the UN PBC, I think the PSC will focus on the new agenda for peace and how to strengthen Africa's position on the new agenda for peace that came out in July. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think, Tifsat, you can take us through the country-specific sessions.
Yeah, sure, Hani. Well, I have mentioned it earlier. The PCC is going to hold an informal consultation and updated briefing on the countries and political transitions. And the countries, as I said before, are Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso. The consultation, it's expected that it will serve as an opportunity for the PCC to directly engage with the member states that are suspended from the activities of the AU in relation to unconstitutional changes of government. The session is going to take an informal consultation format, so which carries no formal outcome in terms of expectation.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So no communique or press statement to be expected, publicly available. Okay. So thank you both so much for joining me on this episode of our podcast. This obviously brings us to the end of another episode. So let's conclude by wishing Gambia a very fruitful month as it takes the chairship for December. And we also wish everyone taking part in the work of the PSC productive discussions on the important topics outlined briefly here today. We are happy to also encourage our listeners to dig deeper into the PSC's agenda as well as the analytical work that we produce. Amani Africa is also very appreciative of the partnership and support of the Australian Embassy in the production of our insights on the provisional program of work of the PSC each month. We believe that this podcast is really a useful accompaniment to our work. So before we go, as usual, we'd like to wish the following African states happy National Days of Celebration in December. So we have United Republic of Tanzania celebrating on 9th December, tomorrow. We have the Republic of Kenya on 12th of December and the state of Libya on 24th of December. So let me also thank our listeners for joining us for this month's edition of Conversing on Africa's Peace podcast, a collaboration between Amani Africa and the Australian Embassy in Addis. We hope you have a great month, and we'll be back next month to consider the PSC's agenda for January 2024. Until then, goodbye. We wish you all peace and prosperity.